Hello, I'm Russ Matalich, President and CEO of RTI. RTI is a neutral offtake provider, and what that means is that we build cables in non-commoditized routes, and those cables are designed to remove the risk from the big operators, the incumbents, the OTTs, the Tier 1 operators, from having to build in those destinations. So we're not building, for example, from Japan to the United States. We're building between Hong Kong and Guam and the United States. So we're building the secondary routes that other companies don't want to build or don't have the budget to build or won't get the budget approval to build. And by doing so, we're removing their financial risk, their geopolitical risk. We're removing all their sorts of risks that they have to do with budgeting and geopolitical issues, so that when the cables are built, they simply buy capacity. So what are we doing? Our function is we're removing we're basically removing a budget cycle from them. They don't have to budget for these cables. We'll build them, and then they can offtake very large amounts of capacity. 2017, on August 8th, we turned up the CUS cable that we had been working on for roughly 5 years. And the CUS cable was incredibly difficult to permit. It took us 2.5 years of permitting just to get the approvals, and then 90 days to build out the landing facility. So that was a huge moment for RTI, because not only did we build a very complicated cable with 7 different parties, but we built it one of the lowest cost per units of any cable ever built. And that cable was delivered to us on August 8th with 20 terabits, and it's one of the fastest and most efficient cables across the Pacific. We're going to continue to build on non-traditional routes, and that means that we're going to focus on areas and locations that are two different things. One is they will be very difficult routes to build, such as routes from countries that nobody else has tried to approach to get cables built. So we're going to continue to build those routes because we have the expertise and intellectual property through a small number of people to be able to get those done. And we're going to continue to expand to very large builds. So far this year, we've invested $170 million in undersea cables, and before the end of this year we'll invest another 160 million more. So by the end of 2017 we'll roughly have $400 million invested in undersea cables alone. The future of this subsea business is going to be very interesting. Much like our multicultural world, it will be an environment where the OTTs don't rule, the incumbents don't rule, and the local monopolies won't rule. It will be an environment that's made up of different companies, different cultures, some incumbents, some neutral providers, some very small, some very large. It will be a reflection of the society that we live in, and those companies will pull together to build new cables. A great example is the CUS cable that we just completed. We had some of the largest companies in the world, $13 billion companies, and some of the smallest companies in the world, which my company was just 1 year ago. 1 year ago we hadn't made any investments, and as of today we've made roughly 140 million investments. In 2000, it was very difficult to raise money in the year 2000. So raising money was almost impossible, but you could always get the permits to land a cable. So fast forward 17 years later, raising money isn't difficult. It's not easy, but you can still get money, but the permits are almost impossible. So the bottleneck is nothing more than permits. It's not money, it's not customers, and it's not unique routes. The bottleneck is absolutely permits. We will continue to be a very large participant along with some of the biggest and smallest companies, not just to service the non-traditional routes, but I think you'll see RTI making investments in some of the smaller players that nobody wants to spend time with, some of the island nations. So yes, we'll be very much involved in helping countries and island nations grow where nobody else is trying to build today. I think the Terrapin event is an awesome event. There's great people here. This is an executive event. There's not a lot of time wasters here, right? So when we come to the event, we brought 9 people to this event. So we spend a considerable sum of money bringing people, and we only attend 2 or 3 events per year. And the reason is the quality and integrity of the people that are here, not only the level of the people, their executive levels. If they're not decision makers, they're decision influencers. But I think the team at Terrapin has done a fantastic job of growing this into one of the best conferences globally. And we continue to look forward to not only sponsoring these events, but also helping attract new users.